There's a coffee shop you pass every day. For years you never go in. It's not special enough, it's too familiar, it's just there. So you drive across town for the trendy place. The one with the aesthetic, the one everyone talks about. You wait in line, you pay too much, you post it on Instagram, and it tastes fine. Not great, just fine. And somehow, the effort makes it feel more valuable than it actually is. But the effort makes it feel worth it. Until one day, you're tired. You don't want to drive across town, you don't want to wait, you don't want to perform. So you walk into that coffee shop you passed for years, and you order. And it's good, not exciting, just good. And you think, why didn't I come here sooner? But you know why. Because back then, good wasn't enough. You needed impressive. Now, good is exactly what you want. The coffee didn't change. You did. And that's exactly what happens with the men you once ignored. There's a man you once knew who would probably give you the exact relationship you want today. And the uncomfortable question is, why didn't you choose him back then? Because it wasn't that he wasn't enough. It's that you couldn't feel what he offered. And once you understand why that changes, you stop trusting chemistry blindly and start seeing patterns you can't unsee. You meet him again, or someone like him, stable, present, clear. He texts when he says he will, he follows through, he doesn't confuse you. And suddenly, he feels different, not exciting, but right. And that shift, that's where most people get the story completely wrong. They think, I matured, my standards changed, I finally know what I want. But that's not the full truth. What actually changed is what your nervous system recognizes as love. Because your brain doesn't fall in love with what's good for you, it falls in love with what feels familiar. And familiarity is not built on logic, it's built on past emotional patterns. So years ago, when someone was calm, consistent, available, it didn't feel safe. It felt boring. Because your system wasn't wired for calm. It was wired for activation, for unpredictability, for chasing, for proving, the kind of dynamic where you don't know where you stand, but you feel everything intensely. That felt like connection. But it wasn't connection. It was activation. And here's the part most people miss. The brain bonds harder to what becomes unpredictable. So the person who gave you just enough attention, just enough distance, just enough confusion, felt more important than the one who was simply there. Not because they were better, because they were harder to secure. And your brain translated that effort into value. That's why you ignored the stable one. Not consciously, but biologically. Because your system didn't know how to attach to something that didn't create tension. And if this is hitting a little too close, stay with me. Because the next part explains why this pattern is so hard to break. Now, fast forward, you've been through enough. Enough confusion, enough almost relationships, enough emotional roller coasters that felt like love and ended like loss. And something in you starts shifting. Not dramatically, quietly, you get tired, not of love, but of instability. And suddenly, what used to feel exciting starts feeling exhausting, and what used to feel boring starts feeling peaceful. And here's your first real payoff. The man didn't become more attractive. Your tolerance for chaos decreased. That's the shift. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. The version of you who ignored him back then would probably reject the life you want now. Because that version of you associated love with emotional intensity, not emotional safety. So when someone showed up consistently, without games, without confusion, without pressure, there was nothing to chase. And without something to chase, your brain didn't register it as important. Now it does. Not because he changed, because you did. But let's go deeper. Because this isn't just about maturity, it's about identity. You don't just attach to how you feel about someone, you attach to how you feel about yourself when you're with them. And back then, you were drawn to men who made you question yourself, where you had to prove your worth, earn attention, adjust your behavior to keep the connection. Because on some level, that dynamic felt known. Now, you don't want to earn love anymore. You want to experience it. And that changes everything. Because the moment you stop trying to prove your value, you stop being attracted to people who require you to. Now here's the mistake most people make at this point. They meet someone stable and try to force excitement. They think, I should feel more. There should be butterflies. This should be stronger. But what they're actually feeling is unfamiliar peace, An unfamiliar peace can feel like a lack of chemistry if your system is still calibrated to chaos. And this is where most people lose the relationship they actually needed. Picture this. You're sitting across from him at dinner. There's no drama, no game, no waiting 3 hours for a text back. The conversation is soft, normal, almost uneventful, and a part of you quietly panics. If I'm not anxious, does that mean I don't care? That's not a lack of feeling. That's your body missing the adrenaline it used to call love. So they leave and go back to what feels intense and call that connection until it breaks again, and then they start the cycle over. So how do you know the difference? Here's the test. Does this person make you feel like you need to perform or like you can just exist? Because real connection doesn't create urgency. It creates stability. It doesn't make you question where you stand. It makes that question irrelevant. And here's your second payoff. Calm is not the absence of attraction. It's the presence of safety your body isn't used to yet. Now let's address the title question directly. Why do women choose men they once ignored? It's not because those men suddenly became enough. It's because those women became able to recognize what enough actually feels like. And that only happens after contrast. After you've experienced what doesn't work. After you've felt what instability does to your body. After you've realized that intensity doesn't sustain connection. Only then does your system recalibrate, and suddenly what you once overlooked becomes exactly what you need. But here's the part you need to be honest about. Timing matters. You can meet the right person at the wrong version of yourself, and it won't work. Not because they weren't right, because you weren't ready to receive what they offered. And that's hard to accept, because it means you didn't just miss people by accident, you missed them because of where you were. And here's the final shift. This isn't about judging your past choices. It's about understanding them, because once you see the pattern, you stop asking, why do I always end up with the wrong person? And you start asking, what part of me keeps choosing what feels familiar over what actually works? And once that question lands, you don't move the same anymore. You don't chase the same energy. You don't confuse the same signals. You start noticing something different. Not who excites you most, but who feels stable enough to actually build something with. Because love isn't what pulls you in the fastest. It's what still makes sense after the intensity fades. And if someone only feels right when it's intense, they were never right. They were just familiar. So the next time you meet someone who feels like that coffee shop you used to pass, don't ask, why don't I feel more? Ask, am I finally ready for what's actually good? Because the biggest shift in your love life won't come from finding someone better. It will come from recognizing what you used to walk past. So when you notice yourself dismissing someone as too normal, pause, ask yourself, is this really not enough for me? Or is this the first time my nervous system isn't in survival mode? That one question can be the moment you stop chasing what hurts you and start choosing what can actually hold you.